Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It is my absolute pleasure to have you on today's show. We have a lot of stories. The Trump administration is reportedly seeking to separate, asylum seekers are reportedly being separated from their kids. Trump is he's really messing up the whole entire world in the NATO summit. We'll talk about that. Also, the DOJ has a little bit of problem reuniting their kids they separated. The scandal around Republican Congressman Jim Jordan gets worse. A fake progressive in Michigan making an embarrassing healthcare blunder. Also, detained American kids are getting the best of American generosity. Frank Bruni is the worst. Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee loves the Nationals. We'll get to that hilarious story. And finally, the New York Times runs a zillion Alan Dershowitz stories to a lot of suspects. And they admit, at least they admit it, that doing these stories was not great. And full disclosure, if you wonder where I am broadcasting, I'm today broadcasting a balcony in an apartment in New York City. And I'm not going to tell you where that is because that's just not a good idea. But New York City is a big place, so you'll never be able to find me. Except for that, I think my location may be on my computer. Anyway, yeah, so, yeah, I'm going to be hiding from all the stalkers out there, but whatever. We got a great show for you today. Of course, as always, getting a little bit of a later start today than we did last time around, but it's okay. All right, let's get into it. So, asylum seekers, we're getting reports now. One from Vice News. They reported the story of a 27-year-old Honduran man named Jose, who was separated from his 3-year-old son at the border in May. Unlike many immigrants who have had their families torn apart since the implementation of Trump's zero-tolerance policy, Jose did not come to the U.S. legally. Though after entering the States, Jose was detained with a removal order, it was determined with an interview with immigration officials in June that Jose's fear of returning to Honduras was credible. Several of Jose's relatives have been killed by a gang in Honduras that also threatened his life, and the asylum case will move forward, according to Vice News. And yet, only this week, Jose was finally reunited with his son, giving us pretty much the clear definition and the clear way of, clear a little bit of an insight, really, in the way of how the U.S. government does things, which is they separate asylum seekers from their families. Which is technically not really something that's supposed to happen, even if you really say to the fullest, if you really do the best to extract the law to your gain to help to ruin the lives of children and immigrants. So even if you really, really, really hate immigrants, the law is not on your side when it comes to asylum seekers. I mean, you can kind of make a little bit of a point that it is on the side when it just comes to people who randomly cross the border, but not for asylum seekers, and they should not be separated at the border. Jose said to Vice, "I never thought they would separate me from my son. I never imagined it. It was very hard, the hardest thing that's ever happened to me." The Trump administration has frequently claimed that asylum seekers at the border would not be separating from their children. DHS is not separating families legitimately seeking asylum at ports of entry, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen said at a White House press conference on June 18th. So, and it seems that we have much of the similar situation over again, which is that Kirstjen Nielsen is lying about something that she did. Because, I mean, remember, I think we all remember that there is the infamous tweets by Kirstjen Nielsen and the many denials, the speeches where she said, "We are not separating families, period." Yeah, we'll see how that turned out. So, yeah, June 18th, we are not seeking families who's legitimately seeking asylum, like Jose's was. What it sounds like they're doing is they're separating, then finding out whether the asylum quest was legitimate, which is a no-no. I'll say, just to say the least. But, yeah, Jose is far from the only legal asylum seeker who's experienced family separation, according to a report from the Los Angeles Times. Court filings describe numerous cases in recent months in which families were separated after presenting themselves at a port of entry to ask for asylum. This is the Los Angeles Times. This happened even when asylum seekers carried records, such as birth certificates or hospital documents, listing them as parents of their children, according to interviews and court records. While border officials have long had a policy of separating children when their safety might be in question, which is what people say, oh, Obama separated families. Well, no, he didn't separate the families. And trust me, if you think I'm being a liberal and making this up, ask someone who really has been covering this for many. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I was talking to someone who really knows the issue, who's been covering it for many, many years. And she covered Obama's administration for the New York Times, Caitlin Dickerson, and she gave me I asked her that because I heard it on right wing sources, and I was like, wait a minute, is this true? But yeah, it seems at this point, that we have a little bit of a situation where the Trump administration is really up to no good at this point. The LA Times report that the separations began long before the zero-tolerance policy was announced. Nicole Ramos, an attorney who helps asylum seekers in Tijuana, said she noticed an uptick of family separations in May of 2017, a year before Jose and his son were separated. So now the administration says they will not end family separations at the border. Sorry that they will. There's an uncertainty about whether their promise can be trusted. So, they've lied about this numerous times when it comes to both family separation of non-asylum seekers and family separation of asylum seekers. So I think this is definitely worth another investigation. It seems like pretty much a simple question because, they stopped it. But it's a very good question. Could they be continuing on doing it even after they've already decided to stop it? And I think that's definitely something that, again, we're really finding some things here on the show that do require a lot more investigation. Nicole Ramos, the lawyer, said, according to the LA Times, that, quote, she worries that despite President Trump's June 20th executive order to end family separations, border officials will continue separating families without due process by saying a parent is in danger to the child or is not actually the parent. They're doing it before the zero-tolerance policy with Obama, and they're going to keep doing it, she said. They say the parent will present a security risk without the well-articulated reasons as to what the security risk was. It's really a time-honored protection for American law enforcement, whether it be the NSA or the ICE. Whether it be NSA or ICE, they love, or Border Patrol, they love to say there's some sort of security reason at risk. And that's another one of the common themes that we find here. The use of it's going to be a security problem, the kids are going to be endangered. You do not want to endanger the kids. But it turns out what you're doing is endangering them, ICE and Border Patrol, by separating them from their parents. So, yeah, you guys you nailed it again. Is pretty much what we're seeing here. So, yeah, the thousands of other parents who had their families taken from them, it's unknown how long it'll take to reunite the families who were separated while seeking asylum. Though the first deadline to reunite families who cleared background checks passed yesterday, even on United, the trauma will still persist. I just think I should take my son to a psychologist. His mind is confused because of the solitude he lived through without his love of his father or his mother who is forgotten. He must have thought that I had abandoned him. Sometimes children get sick from so much depression. They get sick. And, it seems like that is it's going to be a problem, getting these people under control. So, and just getting them back to the way they were before. Anyway, we turn now to NATO. It's a lot of fun. Finally, we get to a fun story. And by the way, I have never seen my dad so disappointed in America than what he was last night with NATO. And boy, did Trump say some things. He said some things. Anyway, Donald Trump spent Wednesday in Brussels for this year's NATO summit. There, he surrounded himself, as we know, with some of the most powerful leaders in the most powerful countries on Earth. And the President of the United States, again, made a total and complete ass of himself on the global stage. He said he opened a bilateral breakfast meeting by welcoming the media. And he added he wanted to clarify, because he's a good boy, he's a good Trumpy, and he wanted to clarify that he meant the fake news media and the legitimate news media. So here he is with that. Oh yeah, so we're gonna have to live production. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, so yeah, it's. And then he got down to business now. In the same bilateral breakfast, when he said, quote, he began the bilateral breakfast meeting by welcoming, quote, the media and the legitimate media. By adding that, he meant the legitimate media and the fake news media. And then he got down to business. He accused Germany of, oh, here it is. Here we are.
Just look at the chart. Take a look at the chart. It's public, and many countries are not paying what they should. And frankly, many countries owe us a tremendous amount of money for many years back, where they're delinquent, as far as I'm concerned, because the United States has had to pay for them.
So yeah, he was talking about
10 or 20
not
years,
NATO not paying their defense spending.
Money is owed. The United States has paid and stepped up like nobody. This has gone on for decades, by the way. This has gone on for many presidents, but no other president brought it up like I bring it up. So something has to be done, and the Secretary General has been working on it very hard. This year, since our last meeting, commitments have been made for over $40 billion more money spent by other countries. So that's a step, but it's a very small step. It sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But it's a very small amount of money relative to what they owe and to what they should be paying. And it's an unfair burden on the United States. So we're here to talk about that, and I'm sure it will be resolved. I have great confidence in the Secretary General. He's worked very, very hard on this, and he knows it's a fact. But I have great confidence in him and his representatives.
Yeah, so that was him talking about a little bit of paying for defense spending, and he is getting under the skin of countries who are attacking him, or he feels attacked by the country. He's sticking up for America is what he's doing on the global stage. I love him so much. But yeah, anyway, yeah, he then got down to business after he called the media fake news, the international media, by accusing Germany of being entirely under the control of Russia, shocker, due to an oil pipeline between the two countries. And you know what? Some people, you know who else? Some people might describe as a captive of Russia. Obviously, President Donald Trump. Zing! There. I mean, I know you didn't see that one coming. I'm a member of the resistance. I do not know if you didn't know that. Yeah, if you see John Kelly like looking at the time there. He's sitting 2 seats to the right of President Donald Trump, and he's like, oh dear. He looked exactly the same way when he was talking about Charlottesville and John Kelly's reaction. So yeah, here's a little bit of. Let's see if we can play some more sound from this here. In a bit, but yeah. So pretty much the point is he's talking and John Kelly turns away. He's like, oh, nothing I can do. And you can see the ambassador, Kay Bailey Hutchinson, U.S. NATO ambassador. I mean, she kind of knew she was on camera, so she had to look like a little bit more composed, but still, she was like holding it in. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so everyone really seems to be having a great time over there in Brussels. Yeah, Trump stood also politely to watch a fancy schmancy air show during the summit's opening ceremony, where evidently he was distracted by something that was a little out of nowhere. Perhaps a large bumblebee. He wasn't covering his eyes delicately like all the ladies. No, but he was staring right in the sun, just like that eclipse time. But yeah, then was off to the one-on-one meetings with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, with whom he insisted he had a very, very good relationship. Really, despite essentially calling her a Russian pawn just hours earlier, as we covered. Then the president got back to business and resumed trashing everyone else, insisting that NATO member countries should not only pledge to meet the previous stated goal of devoting 2% of the GDP to defense spending, but now should hit 4%, nearly 0.5% more than what the U.S. itself spends. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg brushed off the president's sudden rate hike, telling reporters simply, I focus on what we have agreed, and we have agreed on 2%, so let's start with that. Yeah, oh well, I guess Trump said